Al Jazeera's investigative unit has released Gold Mafia, a four-part series into gold smuggling rings and how they form part of a global economy. It's alleged that at the center of this operation in the series is the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. We're now joined by News24 Africa desk editor Lenin Ndebele, who's based in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe for us. Lenin, thank you very much for your time this morning. Having seen the documentary, let's first maybe start with your reaction. Any surprises?
Personally, for me, there are no surprises. Maybe that the amounts involved are astronomical, because we've always known about this. I've written about this in 2020, 2021, because it's a thing that's always been around. So there's nothing new for journalists, basically. But for the layman out there, it's earth-shattering.
Yeah, let's talk about the layman, because the reaction, what I have seen at least or observed, has been quite mixed, with some people numb to these revelations and other people extremely disappointed and shocked. What is it that everyday people in Zimbabwe are telling you?
Well, to put it into context, you have teachers earning about 4,000 rands a month. You have nurses, doctors with no medical sundries in hospitals. Actually, you can even die before an ambulance comes to take you to hospital, you know. Then you get to learn that the ruling elite is spiriting Zimbabwe's mineral wealth to Dubai. That's quite a shocker for many, you know. You have allegations that at some point there's someone being bought about 3.6 billion rand, which is about 200 million US by the government. Obviously, Zimbabweans are outraged, and the opposition, in their wishful thinking, instead of going out there and campaigning, I wish that the president could resign, because this is being exposed like 5 months before a general election, and you find that Zimbabweans, some of them are actually waiting for that Sarajevo spark. Maybe you see a rekindling of civil-military relations, where you have the military and people joining forces to calling for the president to step down. Because, I mean, you remember Mugabe was dislodged when it was criminal elements around him. So basically there are some people who are wishing for that, and this thing is a four-part thing, you know, and already information we are hearing is that the president's wife might be implicated in the next episodes to come, and we'll get to know that you find people who charge as much as 200,000 US for a meeting with the president. You know, some even suggest that the military actually is interested in seeing if the full facts come out. It's quite something, but there are others who would defend ZANU-PF, or by extension the government, or people that are actually implicated. But the messaging has been chaotic and incoherent. It borders around arrogance. For example, there's a social media star, Prophet Java in Eskiti, asks, so now that you know, what are you going to do about it? You know, that's what's happening on the ground.
Sure. And then in the first part, at least, you mentioned other parts possibly implicating other people in the highest echelons of society in Zimbabwe. The current president's niece is cited in this documentary. In fact, this Ubit angel calls Henrietta Rushwega, that is called the niece of the president in this documentary. And even the conversation between the two of them is just something to watch. So where that is concerned, have we heard anything from Ms. Henrietta Rushwega? Is there anything from the president? Is there any indication or any reaction to this?
No, for now, I think the idea is to see everything go through. The president hasn't spoken about it. Henrietta is not even answering calls from journalists, and this thing is happening at a time when last week in Johannesburg, one of her aides who was arrested with gold bars at the OR Tambo was given a 40,000 rand fine. So basically, this thing is happening at a bad time for her. For now, there's nothing from government, and Rushwa is not taking calls.
You mentioned her aide was found with gold in South Africa, and she was given a 40,000 rand fine. In fact, in the first part of the series, Kamlesh Putney, known as the gold dealer, or Brother Paul, according to this documentary, mentions the likes of Kenya, he cites South Africa, he cites Ghana, Zimbabwe, and so he paints a picture of himself having been able to create a network on the African continent, and is quite close to very influential people in the form of presidents of countries. And so what happened with this aid of hers that was found with the gold in South Africa, he got 40,000 rand and that was it?
Yeah, that was it in the suspended sentence. Yeah, but you know, this guy talks about a network across Africa. You should also understand that in recent years, it was more lucrative to smuggle Zimbabwean gold to South Africa. And you had people with jewelry shops, licenses in SA, buying Zimbabwean gold, and then they'll take it to SA. And there was a rebate system where they'll get their money back, some percentage. I'm not sure how much. It used to be the go-to place, but now that has dried up. So now they take this Dubai Avenue, which is more riskier. But, you know, this is the only place in Africa, if not one of the few, where you can buy gold at 5% or 4% of the world market price. And it's not a surprise that in some instances you find people from as far as the DRC coming to sell their gold in Zimbabwe, because the power of the dollar in Zimbabwe is enticing.
Where's Ubert Angel? Anything from him?
Well, he's in Dubai. He's got a service in Dubai tomorrow. He oscillates between Dubai, the UK, and sometimes in the US.
When you say he's got a service, he's got a church service?
Yes. He'll be prophesying.
Kamlesh Putney, anything on him?
Nothing on him, but Simon Rutland, I got in touch with him yesterday. I wanted to do a story. I wanted his comment, and all he said was, listen, this is the work of third parties who want to tarnish my name. People want to see a hard-working businessman get into trouble. Well, it's his line. He's said this before during the gold leaf scandal where tobacco from Zimbabwe was smuggled into South Africa. That's the same line he used.
You put it into context for us in terms of what people in the health sector earn. You take a look at the rhetoric by the leaders of Zimbabwe whenever they're on a world stage, and even some other African leaders, they will say, lift the sanctions on Zimbabwe because they're hurting the people of Zimbabwe. The information that you unearthed, the information that has been revealed by Al Jazeera now, you say it is nothing new, does not come as a surprise to you. Who is hurting the people of Zimbabwe? Because if this is anything to go by, it shows you the crazy amounts of monies that actually come into the country, but they don't translate to the ground. You still have traffic lights from Ian Smith days. You still have people that don't have access to health care. It just doesn't make sense somehow.
Well, it's a combination of both factors. To a certain extent, sanctions really do affect our survival, but by and large, it's the corrupt politicians who hide behind the cover of sanction busting, or who see an avenue to make the extra dollar, capitalizing on our situation. You know, this gold thing, this money is not going through the main channels, so to speak. It's an underworld kind of a scenario. So basically, it's always been the case. If you look at the diamond revenue from the Marange days, it was a similar occurrence.
How did it, just remind our viewers how it came about that Ubert Angel was appointed to be one of the top ambassadors of Zimbabwe?
Well, Ubert Angel is a charismatic guy, and he oozes confidence here and there, and well, I don't know who behind his team linked into the presidency, so to speak, but he somehow found himself there. I mean, before that, I remember 2012, I did a story for Drum magazine where he had gone to see Nelson Mandela. He's always had ways and means of getting close to power. So, yeah, I think it was more of his enterprising characteristics to get to the presidency, and maybe pitch that he wanted to be an ambassador. And well, he became one.
Okay, Fidelity Printers, because it's also identified in the documentary. Fidelity Printers and Refinery apparently is a company that is owned by the Central Bank of Zimbabwe. We know with the currency situation. Explain to our viewers how they fit into the picture.
Well, to be honest, they are just caught in the crossfire because in the documentary, there's no one from Fidelity who's actually interviewed, anyone who's authoritatively from the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe who's interviewed. So basically, it's hearsay. These guys talking about what they can do using Fidelity. There's someone claiming that Fidelity it gets money from Rutland or Macmillan. You know, basically, they are just catching strays for now. If only the documentary had trickled into Fidelity Printers or the RBZ and spoken to actual actors from those institutions, then we'll be talking about something else. But for now, it's strays, really.
Okay. Who is this man that is always next to Ubert Angel? What do we know about him?
He's a new guy on the scene. He hasn't been working with Angel for quite some time. Angel has had other people that he's worked with, and there's also a former kickboxer in Spain. I think his name is Dek or something like that. But this is a new guy, really. If you were to go back to check Ubert Angel's past videos from as far as back as 10 years ago, he's nowhere seen near him. He's just a guy who came into the picture now. You see him also carrying the microphone for him during the prayer sessions, the church services, and so on. He's fairly a new guy. I think we should investigate who he is, actually, as journalists, if we are to move forward this Al Jazeera story. Or maybe you are going to know about it in the next episode.
I mean, outside of being a journalist, you are a Zimbabwean. How are you doing? You know, how are you holding up, seeing everything that is happening in the country, more so in Bulawayo?
Well, to be honest, I don't work in Zimbabwe, so to speak, but I stay here, basically. Power cuts are here, health services are bad. Things are not really working the way I would want them to work in a normal setup, but we're not the worst in Africa, but that's not a defense, but we're not happy.
Thank you very much to Lenin Ndebele, News24 Africa desk reporter out in Bulawayo.